Have you been soldering your projects lately and finding it frustrating? The solder doesn't stick or comes off or it's hard to melt? Well, I'm going to give you my top tips for soldering properly. Here we have a head off of a lumen top light that I'm going to remove the MCPCB off of and then get the driver out so I can flash it. There's no flashing pads, so I have to pull the driver out and use a SOIC chip. But I thought this was a great opportunity to kind of show you what I do to make soldering a lot easier. So first off, I want to tell you that seeing your work is really important. So the first tip is see what you're doing. So at the very least, I suggest you get something like this, okay? I got one of these. This was like 30, 40 bucks on Amazon. This one has LEDs on the bottom of it. It's temperature controllable. I can actually make it cooler or warmer color temperature. This is glass, not plastic. It's pretty large. I don't know, is that like 5 inches? And if you put it right over the thing right here, you can see now, of course I'm using a camera, but you can see how, actually it doesn't work super well with the camera. Anyways, it's a must for an inexpensive thing. It gets the light where you need it. And then of course, it magnifies it. See how it's got like splatters all over it? Well, that's from me breathing on it, right? Breathing on it and not even cleaning it. Well, guess what? That splatter guard works both ways. One day I was soldering a bypass on a spring, and like an idiot, I put the spring under compression. When I let go, it splattered molten solder like in a cloud. And since I was looking through this guy, it acted like a barrier, like a shield, and it protected me. By the way, I want to tell you that I've been modding for over a year with this thing, and it is awesome. Okay, it just sits in whatever position you want it in, clamps to the table. It's great. But just recently, I have progressed to this. Okay, and what this is, let me go up a little bit more, is a digital microscope. And it's got a fancy stand here. As you can see, there's a stand over here, and it goes down to the base. I got other stuff set on it, but that's a base. And what it allows me to do, let me adjust my camera here, is hook it up to a TV like that. Okay, so this is the view from that microscope. Now we're going to unsolder these two joints here. And the way to do that is to use Flux. So first off, we got to use Flux paste. I use paste. Some people use the liquid. What I like about it is it's got this like thick consistency, and you can dig it out, wipe it on something, and then when it gets hot, it just turns into liquid anyways. I like that it congeals. I like that it just doesn't run everywhere when it's cold. And it wipes off very easily with alcohol. And maybe in some of my other videos you've seen, I got this little, I don't know, I guess it's like a nail polish decanter. And so what I do is you just push down right here, push, and then this little reservoir right here fills up with alcohol in there. So like here, watch, you're going to see it come out. Here you go. See, there you go. So, and it just sits in there until you like suck it up. All right, so I love that decanter. Now, another thing that is really good is getting a quality soldering iron. And guys, I've dealt with a lot of soldering irons, but I'm here to tell you that this soldering iron right here, this AIXUN T3A, it's a Chinese clone of a $600 soldering station that you can get on AliExpress for about $100. And I know that some people go, oh, $100, but dude, $100 for a really good tool, that's nothing. And this thing is amazing. It's got, now if you want to pay a little more, around in the $140 range, you're going to get what you see here, which is the unit, the wand, and this awesome stand that, as you can see, has a cable attached to it. And what happens is when I take this out, and you can see that the tip is at 24 degrees, so it's like room temperature right now. If I take it out, I didn't do anything. It just knows that it's out, and it heated up to 350 that fast, okay? And then you put it back in, it beeps again, it goes dormant, and you'll see it start cooling down by ambient temperature. So equipment like this is going to make your life so much easier. First off, you're not worried about a hot iron and where to put it. Secondly, the solder is not sitting on the tip and just oxidizing the whole time. right? So that your tips are going to last longer and your job's going to be easier. So I really highly recommend, again, AIXUN T3A is the model, and you'll find them. They're all over AliExpress. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the Flux here. Okay, so there's the Flux. But what we're going to do is I like to take a piece of solder and just kind of dip it in the solder and just kind of get some of it on there like that. Just get some on the end. And the reason I like to do this, I used to use wires and stuff, but then I realized, hey, you know, I'm going to solder with this, and so I don't have to keep it clean, and it just, I don't know, it's just, it works. So that's what I like to do. I like to put it right on there. I am going to go ahead and I'm just going to rub a little bit of Flux on there and a little bit of Flux on here, okay, on these two joints, these solder joints. And what the Flux does, if you don't know, is it's an acid, and it removes the oxidation from the outside of the tin and the lead, because the lead especially wants to oxidize, which is rust. And when there's an oxidation layer, it prevents it from bonding to the solder that's on your iron, and so it won't melt. And when you're trying to, like, you know, make a wire touch a pad, you know, they just don't bond. So always use Flux. Now I'm going to take my tip here. So here's my tip. So on my iron here, you can tell that the tip is kind of like dark and like lackluster. And you can see there's a little bulge of solder that I left on it from the last time I soldered. So I'm going to use the little mesh. I know that's a microscopic view, but I'm using the mesh, and I'm just kind of poking at this. And now I poked at it. If you look, it's really shiny. See, it's like super shiny, and now it's good to go. So I'm going to grab tweezers. Okay. I'm not even really grabbing the wire yet. I'm just getting ready to grab it. And I'm waiting till this is nice and liquidy. Okay, now this one was being a little bit of a pain to lift right away. It was being a little bit of a pain. And if it was, what I was going to do is I was going to apply more solder to my tip here. So if you look at the tip, and let me get that in focus, you can see that the tip has a little bit of solder on the tip. See how it's not completely flat? It's a little bit like rounded. So here, let me wipe it off, and you'll see, there we go. See how flat it is now? Like super flat. So there was definitely some solder on there. Now I'm going to put my iron back in the machine. This one's free. This one's free. Okay, so I'm good to go. All right, I'm back. I flashed it. So the clip went onto this chip, and I did some AVR dude stuff, and I flashed a new firmware because the one that was on there wasn't behaving exactly like I wanted. All right, so let me get these things threaded back through. We're going to add some Flux. So I'll add some Flux right here, and some Flux right here to this side too. A little on the wires themselves. Just get the Flux on all the parts that are going to combine. And then I'm going to take my iron, and this is why I didn't care if I got Flux all over the edge of this thing, because I'm just going to, you know, preload my iron here. Okay, so I got a big blob, actually, a bigger blob than I intended. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just go ahead and, okay, just put a little bit, just preload that wire and this one too, okay? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reorient this. I'm right-handed, and my life will be easier if I'm oriented this way. Okay. And then I am going to, I've seen so many people talk about the right way to do this. I like to just kind of push it down. That's my thing. I like to just, like that. That's what I like to do. And notice how I got a nice glistening circle. See, it's like so shiny and glistening. Let's see that on the, well, let's see it on the monitor after I do the other one. But the reason why I mentioned that is if you get a really good solder, like with Flux and everything, that thing should look like so shiny, like Mr. Clean's forehead, you know? Let's go ahead and do the red one. Okay. I apparently didn't have enough solder loaded. So I'm going to get a little more. Boop. And it's really hard to do with the camera and everything. So if I look like I'm not the master, I mean, you got to forgive me a little bit. I got all this stuff in the way. Okay, let's try again. So got that there, and then there we go. And notice how it doesn't take forever to, you just touch it and just kind of melts on, right? I think people really struggle with that. And really, I think what's going on is that people don't realize that their soldering iron is just junk, just absolutely the worst. And they're fighting their equipment. If you got something that's, good quality, it shouldn't be a problem. Now, let me show you. I'm about to store my iron, okay? I'm assuming everything's soldered well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dip my iron in here, okay? And you see how shiny and oh, there you go. See how shiny and silver it is now? And then what I'm going to do is this stuff is called tip tinner. And basically, it's just made out of tin. And you just kind of put your tip in there. So notice that the tip is now covered in metal, and it's got kind of a golden look to it because the tip turner itself already has other stuff in it. But anyways, I'm going to put it in my holder now. So I just put it in my holder, and now it's powering down, right? It's cooling. And what's great about that is that metal is going to keep the tip from oxidizing and getting all thrashed. And the next time I use it, it'll become molten again, and you just wipe it off, and then you use it. You know, I in a couple other videos, I didn't do that. I just wiped it off and stored it, and somebody called me out on it. And the reason why is because, quite frankly, I live in a very arid environment, and I solder almost every day. So it's one of these things where I've gotten a bad habit where I don't tin it and stick it away. But if you don't have tip tinner, which is like pure tin, it's got no lead so that it's less oxidation, you can actually just tin your tip with the solder itself, because then when it gets molten, you just wipe it off. To prove that I can make decent soldering joints, because I was just so unhappy with how they looked. So after desoldering it because of that bad jacket on the black one, you can see I put new wires in. And so what I'm going to do now is I am just going to go ahead, solder this last wire, and just show you what these things should look like. So let me bend that over, get it ready in spot here. And again, I've got Flux already on it. I'm wiping my tip of the soldering iron to get it clean, and then I'm going to go ahead and add some new solder, load it there. Okay, and let's go ahead and do this. There we go. And that's not bad, but I want a nice little blob out of it. That looks pretty shiny. I got a little strand poking out right here, right on the end. So I'll just push it in. I did not twist the strands of this wire too much because I just didn't care. But there you go. So that should look pretty good. Let me get some alcohol and let me clean this up a little bit. You see how shiny those solder joints are. So those are good quality ones, and I'll take it, considering the fact that, as I said, I've been soldering and unsoldering these things a bunch of times. So that's not bad. So I hope that was helpful, and I will see you in the next video. All right, peace, guys.